Conversations with the inspiring minds, using design and creativity towards social change. This is Design for the People with Greg Bunbury.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Greg Bunbury, and on this show, I'll be talking to the designers, artists, creative thinkers, and activists using their skills to tackle social issues, uplift communities, and make a difference in the world. On today's show, I'll be talking to multifaceted creative Samuel Mensah. Samuel's experience and skill set spans everything from branding, UX, digital marketing and design to art direction. This expertise across disciplines has enabled him to work on award-winning campaigns for clients including Nike, Google, NTV, H&M, Virgin, the BBC and Barclays. Between this and his self-initiated work, Sam is also the founder of Creative Supply. He's also creative director for Future of Ghana Limited, a charitable organization established to organize and advance the education and training of second-generation Ghanaians. Sam, welcome to the show.
Wow. Thank you for having me. That's such a succinct and direct introduction. I love it.
Well, you, man. I love doing the intros because it gives me a chance to kind of go through your work and kind of unpack some of the things that you're about. So it's a great insight into what our conversation is going to revolve around. So off the back of that, could you give us just a brief kind of just where your journey has come from and what's led you to this place here where you're doing so much community and social focused work?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think, I don't know where to even start with this, but I feel like, fundamentally, I've realized that as a designer, like as creatives, we're essentially servants, like we're here to serve, we're here to serve the world, like and improve the world, with what we give through our skill sets, and through our abilities, So I feel like when you have that mentality, that we're here to improve the world, improve humanity in some way, the game changed for me when I realized that, that it's all about sort of creating to give, creating to actually improve and to nurture, that was when, the game changed for me. So I was pretty much saying in 2012, when I designed my first typeface, I was like, cause I didn't have the ambition, of doing it to make money or doing it for this, I just wanted to do it because I wanted to give people another option to say, look, use this typeface instead of, instead of all the Helveticus and Futuras every day, So, that was at the core, like my belief saying, I just want to give, and so like over the years, that's kind of evolved and translated into things like, being involved in Future of Ghana, being involved in, Youth Worldwide, Creative Supply, all these things that fundamentally aim to give back, like and impart some of my skill and wisdom like into people to improve their lives as well.
That's awesome. So let's talk about that pivot a little bit. Do you remember a particular event or circumstance that kind of made you trying to kind of change your perspective? Because I think it's a big deal as designers and creators, especially designers and creators of color, when we stop looking at our work as purely commercial, even though you've had lots of commercial clients. But when we start looking at our work as though, okay, how can this serve our communities? How does this become useful to other people? So was there a particular pivot or a particular moment that you remember?
I can't say there was, like I mentioned, like it was when I sort of made my first typeface. I think, that was a pretty big juncture, like in terms of, what design can really be used for, and even then, like, I'm still very, very naive, like in terms of the true impact design actually has, it wasn't until my first official sort of job in like an agency, like in AKQA in 2013, when I realized, like we design apps, we do this stuff, we do that stuff, and we really have the influence, to really sort of like impact people's lives, So at the time I was designing like a Nike running app, and the way, and that itself, the way that app itself just had the ability to improve people's lives, to change people's lives. Just by a running app, but it coached them and encouraged them to actually, to run every morning, to do this, to really keep up with their fitness, and even that in itself, as minute as it is, just the way that touched millions of people, I was able to actually be, like a cultural reset in terms of, the power of applications. The past decade alone, the slew of apps that we've seen, from from Airbnbs to like running to Uber, to Deliveroo, all these things that actually shape our lives and, like are so useful to us. They were all designed, they were all, have design outlook. And I think that, like it was no one sort of moment, but it's just, a cumulative sort of learning and understanding of the industry, and our power as creatives as well, that we really shape this world that we live in, essentially, so that in itself, will slowly and surely I began to realize just how powerful we are, and here we are now, like I still believe that there's so much more to do, but, like in terms of what we're worth, like in terms of the power we have as creators, then don't get me started with architects, like they literally build the world, it's like, just understand that there's, we literally have so much at our fingertips that it took a while to really understand that power, I guess, because you don't really sort of learn that in school, you don't really learn that aspect, that we are essentially masons, like and we build, and we craft it, and we, like we construct, so it took a while to understand that aspect, but when it did, like came like a ton of bricks, and the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, as creators and builders and architects of culture and design and commerce, would you say that Black creators have a kind of a responsibility to try and impact their community, or is it something that should just really happen organically, or something that we kind of come to or evolve into rather than actually pushing ourselves into it?
Oh, that's a very, interesting question, because of the fact that there is no sort of one definitive answer. Like I'll say for me, I had a very strong, yearning in my soul that, like I have to give back in some way, so it began by being involved with Future of God, being the founder of that, and with, two or three other people as well, to me just mentoring, just a collective, like of young Black creatives as well around me based in London. Like it really was just something in me to actually say, like I've made it to a certain point now. I want to do this, and in fact, I'll be unfulfilled if I don't do this, so, that was my personal journey. Not everyone feels like that, and I feel like, you should only do it if you actually feel like it, and if there's a real desire, to authentically give back and to do your part, but at the same time, everyone's different, and, you make a rule that says, oh, if you're Black and you make it, then you have to do this, because, I realize, like a lot of people just aren't the same way, and being in the industry, like, seeing all these corporate people, and learning that some of these senior leaders were Black, like, and I've never heard of them, and I don't see them giving talks. I don't see them doing this. I don't see them doing that. And that's just the path they've chosen, and, like I remember when I was 22, the head of Nike Digital at the time, in my agency, he was a Black man, and that was incredible to me to see, oh, not only was he Black, he was Ghanaian as well. I was like, wow, I've never heard of you. Why have I never heard of you? I want to learn everything about you. Why aren't you, more visible? Like, I need to know. I need to know what's going on. Like, I realize now, now I'm 30, like I realize and reflect, that's just not his path at the time. But doesn't mean that he's not doing anything.
Of course.
I realize there are various ways. Yeah, there are various ways and various, outlets, and various routes that people choose to actually do their part, and so, you just pick the one that makes sense to you and pick the one that's actually feels authentic to you. But I find that more than often, like it's the quiet ones actually doing the most, a lot of the time. So, people may regard me as quiet as well, in terms of, what I've done or not done. But, I know what I've done, and people around me as well, what I've done as well. So it's really interesting, like I reflect on, my prior mentors, people that I look up to, like, and still look up to, like, and say, they just do it differently, like everyone's different. But I feel like more than not, everyone is doing something. No one's really in a corner, with their mouth closed. They're always doing something, Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. There's levels to activism, and activism isn't always the loud, visible stuff that you see. It's not always the marches and the raised fist. sometimes just by being in a particular position, that in itself is a form of activism, or just expressing joy or expressing a connection with our culture, that in itself becomes an act of resistance or an act of activism. And, you know, in the example you gave, I guess the one thing I can kind of say for that is, in terms of the young people coming up, you can't be what you can't see. So just to have somebody in that position is in itself a huge thing, because until you see that pathway and you're like, oh, wow, I can do that. This person looks just like me. This person's from the same hood or the same whatever. I can do that. And that becomes your pathway. So there's lots of different levels to how we go out there and we make a difference in the world. One of the things I wanted to touch on real quick was, like, you're so connected to your community, and your Ghanaian background, and how much does that kind of play into how you orient yourself and how you conduct yourself in your work now?
Very interesting. So, you know, that's one of the reasons why, like, I haven't really sort of released work in a long time, you know, like in terms of actually publicly, putting work out, whether it's on, you know, my Behance or whatever, like on my website and stuff, you know, like I only just got a website this year, you know, like I've never really had a proper website before. So I just got one this year. But, you know, I think it means, for the most part, the reason why, like, I made a decision was purely because of the fact that it was a quality decision, you know, like, and, you know, I feel like very few things actually, you know, like on the quality sort of level that I want them to actually put out there. So, you know, that's the reason for that. But I feel like in general, when it comes to the whole sort of Ghana thing, you know, like and my culture, you know, like my background and everything, the way I carry myself is just simply the fact that, you know, I am, you know, I was born in Ghana. I came here to the UK when I was around 4 or 5 years old, and, you know, the rest is history, essentially. You know, like, I think it just means to always represent, you know, like every time you see my name, you know, like, that's Ghana, you know, every time you just see my face, you know, that's representation, basically. So, like you just mentioned, you know, sometimes it's just being present, you know, like, is enough, you know, but it always means that, yeah, like, I always give props to where I'm from, you know, like, I'm proud of my heritage, I'm proud of my name, I'm proud of my country, you know, and I think it just means that, just that in itself, you know, just reminds people that, you know, and it sounds like a simple thing, but it's actually not. You know, it's actually not to always give props to where you're from, because there are a lot of, like, even Ghanaian, you know, creative pioneers that, you know, don't really sort of mention the Ghana part, you know. So I realized that, yeah, you know, there's looking to pop culture, you know, like a lot of us are Ghanaian, you know, but very few of us actually sort of claim it, you know, like every single time, you know, like or speak about it. You know, whether it's for PR reasons or for this or for that, you know, Lord knows, you know, I don't know why, but, you know, it sounds like simple enough, but it's actually not, you know, to always talk about heritage and to always sort of say where you're from is something like that, you know, like I try to do a lot, you know, like I used to claim Peckham, you know, because that's the way, like, I was raised, you know, for 20 years of my life, you know, in fact, yeah, exactly, you know, like, in fact, on my first night race, you know, like I would say, you know, London, Paris, New York, from Peckham, you know, because I would put up there, like, in terms of, you know, well, this is like, you know, the cauldron of culture, you know, and that in itself gave me pride, you know, like, and I evolved and realized, you know what, yeah, Peckham is cool. I'm not really from here, you know, I'm from Ghana, you know, so let me sort of rep that instead or as well, you know. Either way, you know, like, it's always good. Like, even now, you know, now I'm Mr. Croydon, you know, and now, like, I'm part of the, you know, creative scene in Croydon, you know, trying to uplift, you know, young creative talent, you know, like, and nurture that as well, yeah, and be part of the creative scene, because Croydon itself as well is, you know, a very popping sort of place in terms of, you know, like, emerging talent. So wherever I'm at, you know, I try to do the same thing. Like, I try to represent, you know, like, and push that narrative, you know, of supporting that area or place.
Yeah, no, I feel that. And I think that kind of leads me into your Black is Still Beautiful billboard. For those who don't know, I was fortunate to work with Sam on a billboard he did for the Black Outdoor Art Initiative that I curate in partnership with Brotherhood Media. And your billboard, which was probably one of the more popular ones, was entitled Black is Still Beautiful. So, like, I'd love to hear you speak on it, but just for my take on it, One of the things that I kind of see in your work, and you can tell me whether this is accurate or not, having spent time around lots of African households and communities, I'm obviously for a West Indian background. One of the things I noticed in being in these households is the kind of this connection between old meets new, of these very kind of traditional households with very modern sensibilities, where there's lots of very strong values in terms of how you address people and how you speak to people and the respect you give, but then it's in a very modern context. And which kind of strikes me, that's what struck me about some of your work, especially the Billboard, where you have these very kind of old school, very real values, but with very modern sensibilities in how it's structured and the way it's looked and the use of typography. Would you say that's a kind of an accurate assessment?
Oh man, I think that's a very new, like a very sort of interesting one. You know, I think firstly, you know, I have to say, just thank you for the opportunity to actually get involved in our project, and it's like because we had a mutual connection. You know, the late great John Daniel. You know that was our mutual friend, and I didn't even know you prior, but like it's amazing how even through his passing, you know, this connection that we've made has actually led to this, you know, this happening. You know, so that's really incredible that like a mentor of mine is still having an effect on my life. You know, like after he's gone. You know, but you know that whole, you know, process in itself, you know, like it was very, very interesting for me just to create art again, because I haven't created art for a long time, essentially, right? You know, so, and I say art because there's a distinct difference between art and design, you know, because I design for a living, you know, I design apps, I design, you know, branding, and I do this, I do that, you know, and that's design, you know, that's for a client, that's for work, but I rarely get the opportunity to express myself, you know, in art sort of form, you know, like, and that was the first time in a really long time. So it felt alien to me, you know, like initially, you know, what do I say? Like, what do I talk about and how do I say it? And how do I sort of represent it? You know, do I use European standards to convey, you know, like a black message? Do I sort of design this with like an African approach? You know, like what? And, you know, like, not only was it art, but like it was art that had like a big platform, like, and a big message to be told as well, you know. So it was a big sort of wrestle in my mind in terms of, just how do I execute this exactly, you know, like,
it's a tough brief for sure, man.
Yeah, you know, like, it doesn't sound tough, but actually is, because when you realize the scope of it, you know, like, and just how many people are watching, you realize I really have to say something, you know, I really have to please, you know, like an appease, you know, and, you know, represents so many things like in this piece of work, basically, right? You know, so it's like, you know, how do I convey my London side? How do I convey my black side? How do I convey my Ghanaian side? How do I convey my Peckham side? How do I convey this and that? You know, and it's like, I have to do all this in one piece of art, you know, like, and eventually, you know, like I landed on that message, and, you know, we went back and forth in email. I was inspired by, you know, these lyrics by Dave, the rapper, like, and it was just a case of saying, you know, black is beautiful, black is this, black is that, you know, like, and there was all this discussion about we have to sort of like interpolate it, you know, in a way so that, you know, no lawsuits come around, you know. And so what I realized was that, you know, we had the words, the phrase black is beautiful, like all the time, you know, but now it's almost a case where we need a reminder, like a real reminder as well, that black is still beautiful, you know, and the reason why, you know, that stuck out to me as well is the fact that, you know, it's simply just a case of like, I never saw that growing up, you know, like, I never saw that like, on the billboard like, anywhere, you know, like, and it was a message to the younger me to say, well, what would you have loved to have seen like on the street, you know, on the way home from primary school, to say, that's something that would have uplifted me and my friends to say, we are still beautiful, like we are still worthwhile, you know, like, and like we mean something, you know, like our lives are valuable, essentially, right? You know, like, and that in itself, you know, is so simple, but it's so effective, you know, like, and, you know, like even in terms of the coloring as well, you know, like initially, like I had multicolors, you know, like I had like red and greens and oranges, but then like, there's my wife that actually suggested, you know, well, no, you know, it should be shades of brown, shades of black, basically, you know, that actually convey that, that it's still beautiful, these shades, these tones, these textures, they're still beautiful. And I feel like, when you speak about the old with the new, man, again, the old and the new, being reminded about things that we are still beautiful, we are still powerful,
yes,
we are still this, like the old and the new is like, that's the old and the new, the new message is still the old message, it's never really changed a little bit, but the message is like, it's still the same. And I feel like, we need to be reminded about that and bring that to the forefront again, because, man, when we sort of realize our value, the potential is boundless, so,
Yeah. And what I love about it as well is that it's joyful.
Do you
know what I mean? There's a real sense of joy. And I kind of feel like a lot of the times when we come at these projects, what makes it so difficult is that we're dealing with pain and we're dealing with trauma. And to kind of come at a brief like that and then come out with something that represents joy as like the ultimate form of resistance, it's celebratory. And that in itself is amazing. And, what I loved about you and your process is that when you came with your first idea and I kind of pushed back and I was like, hey, let's look at it this way, or maybe let's change this, let's change that. You actually did the work. So you went through that process and you went through that introspective process of kind of going, what do I want to say and how do I want to say it? And a lot of times, especially with the Black Outdoor Art Project, is Black culture isn't a monolith. So there can never be one expression that encompasses the full experience of being Black. And what I was looking for was the individual experience, the individual subjective experience, to get a range of emotions, to get a range of perspectives. Because more time, whenever something like Black Lives Matter or George Floyd, we get some celebrity on TV and they're just like, what do you want? Or you got like answer for everybody in the whole Afro-Caribbean diaspora, and that's not possible. So what I really loved about yours was that it was personal and it was authentic and it was joyful and celebratory. So, I mean, thank you for that work, man. That was amazing.
Oh man, thank you for getting that out of me, and give me the platform and opportunity to create, because that's a very good point to make, is that, let's not be reminded of our trauma, but let's celebrate, just how we can progress and go forward, and that's amazing, because that's just how I feel as a person as well. It's my just outlook and personality in general. So put the bold yellow colors, the bold bright billboard, that's the kind of person I am. So I had to put it through the artwork and let that be the message. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. So, what's going on with you at the moment? What are you working on at the moment? Where can the people find you?
Wow. Working on a slew of things at the moment, but, you're not going to see it for a while. But at the same time, people can find me, on social media. All my ads are the same. Samuel Mensah B, and I'm always looking for, to discuss things with young up and coming creators, if you're out there, if you need some guidance, if you need some words of encouragement, just how to navigate the game, I'm here to give you the game, because I feel like my career has been very, very interesting in terms of where I've been, what I've done, how I've navigated things and where I am now. I really want to sort of nurture the upcoming generation in terms of, giving them the shortcuts, giving them the information to really understand the worth and power, as a young creator, how to navigate the industry to make the most of what they have, and to feed their family as soon as they can, basically, because we have that skill, but it's just a case of navigating just how to actually manifest it. That information isn't given so clearly, so I feel like, those that are in need of it, I'm here to help, and feel free to message me and get things going.
Man, that's amazing. We're going to list all your links and everything in the show notes. Thank you for connecting with me again. Bro, it's been awesome. I'm looking forward to getting you on another billboard again.
Exactly. More
and
stuff, man.
That's it, man. Just keep pushing forward.
All love, man.
Oh, man. Appreciate it. Thank you, man. All right, everyone.
Cheers.
You've been listening to Design for the People with Greg Bunbury.